recording was done in my bathroom while I was away. My son explained that she told him that I had given her permission to be in my bathroom and to use my makeup and all that stuff, which of course wasn't true. But what's disturbing about this is that this goes on for hours and hours and hours. I was worried about her because she would be locked in the bathroom a lot of the time when we were all home, and I was worried. I thought maybe she was developing an eating disorder. So she had this checklist of things that she was going to do when she came to our house. As time went on, she was here for 11 months. After about 6 months or so, none of it had been accomplished, and we started really holding her feet to the fire, and that's when things started kind of going sideways, and we started really seeing what was going on. As we started to confront her, her initial reaction would be to just apologize profusely and all this, but no real changes were ever getting made. Aside from that, she had come here and she told us that she was that her mother was just this tyrant, and that she was like a slave labor at her own house, had to clean the whole house, had to take care of everything. I'm thinking that when she comes to our house, I'm gonna have to tell her, to relax and not have, she doesn't have to worry that, part of our family, she doesn't need to worry about, never making a mistake or anything like that. But no, she was a huge slob. I mean, everything that she touched was just a mess. And she had I was following around behind her, picking things up, and she didn't know how to do anything. She didn't know how to do laundry. She didn't know how to cook a meal. She didn't know how to clean. She didn't know how to do anything. So it was hard to believe that this was really true, the stuff that she had been telling us about how she'd been the only one that cleans the whole house and does all the work at her house. It was... Now, her mother was very controlling and her mother was very abusive, but it also seemed pretty clear that her mother was also doing everything for her and not allowing her to do anything, or not allowing her to do anything, not teaching her to do anything. And so on the surface, she was just apologizing and stuff like that, but what she was doing behind the scenes was she was starting to complain about us to friends. And so we found, now after she's gone, we found all this correspondence with her telling people how she's being abused by us, how she's being abused by my son. Absolutely ridiculous. And her sense of entitlement is just outrageous. She was living with us for free, and we gave her a job doing what she said she wanted to do. She said she wanted to do film editing, video editing, and social media marketing. And so we gave her a job doing exactly that. And we're paying her for it. That she has to work all the time. That I'm just driving her. I'm a slave driver. Just like she was saying with her mother, that her mother was a slave driver. Now I'm the slave driver. She was doing her own social media. She was doing her own marketing herself as this whole sugar baby thing. This is an important lesson for me, because, and for any of you, is that just because someone was abused, and even though she was very savvy about talking about it. And maybe this is a red flag, in fact, the fact that she could talk about the abuse, which was something I could never do at her age. I never had any idea that I was being abused at her age. But she could clearly talk about the abuse, and she was editing my videos, for heaven's sakes. I mean, we would talk about the content of my videos all the time. She felt entitled to everything that we were giving her and more. Seemed to lack true empathy. She had this kind of phoniness about her that was very uncomfortable. Felt manipulative to me, but then I was blaming myself. I thought that I was cut off, that because of the way that I was raised, I was maybe lacking some compassion, because I hadn't had a daughter, I didn't have a sister, and all I had was these really, emotionally cut off parents, and I was never allowed to have any needs. So I was thinking, that maybe I was being harsh. But I did feel like she was manipulative with her emotions. And this was confirmed, of course, later when I heard these recordings of her mother. It was exactly the same way with her, and in the recordings with her mother, she's not at all that way. She's very calm. I had over-empathized in that I would have given anything to have a family reach out to me the way that we had done for her. And so I projected onto her those qualities that would make it so that she would appreciate that, because I would appreciate that. And of course, she said the right things at the right times. Her actions just didn't show that she appreciated it, and ultimately it came clear that she didn't appreciate it. Even with a way out, she didn't have a lot of pride about proving herself and all of that. She was perfectly fine with using people. And so she, getting to be more independent and taking care of herself was never a goal of hers. But she was trying to drive a wedge between my two sons. And she also tried to do that with my son and me. Absolutely trusted her. She had absolute access to everything. She had gotten in my phone, gotten in my computer, and was trying to look for stuff that she could use against me. There was a certain aggressiveness to her that I didn't ever see before. So she was clearly, she hid that she had these ulterior motives and this aggressive desire to harm, anyone that got in her way. She had a huge fantasy life. I mean, she left all kinds of stuff here about she's singing, she's got, these like dramatic narratives written out where she's everything like fantasy about her fame and she clearly wants to be famous, wants to be admired and all this kind of stuff, and really loves, really like loves to make fun of people like Kylie Kardashian or whatever, Kylie Jenner, but that she would give her eye teeth to switch places with her. Extremely manipulative and so disengaged from her own any sort of authentic real emotions, that even at her young age, which is so super sad. I mean, every teenage girl is melodramatic, I mean, I know that I was, but there's some things about this that were just really pretty outrageous. I believe she did have low self-esteem, but what was the biggest thing that was just so different about her that I didn't relate to was that she didn't have any grit. She didn't have any. She definitely had a Cinderella complex where she really believed someone was going to come along and save her, and wasn't doing anything. We had set her up basically with a perfect situation to get herself on track with her own life. My son was acting, a lot of times he was acting like paranoid and jealous and things like that, and I was worried about him. I thought, why is he being like that? And I realize now that it was because there was all kinds of reasons for him to be. She planted little evil seeds of, insecurity in him, and they were only kids. He was like 17 when he started seeing her, 19 now. He sensed that he was uncared for and that he was being emotionally neglected, and he sensed all of that. She was, really there was lots of I love yous and hugs, and all very awkward, all very, very awkward. She seemed to be sickly and needing that kind of attention quite a lot, which is something I'm always kind of suspicious of, and of course I blame myself for that, because I thought that this is an area where I felt like I was broken, because in my life growing up, my mother really neglected our health care, and so I was just never allowed to be sick or anything like that. So I thought there was something wrong with me, and I was feeling like I need to work on this. Why am I not more? Because I'm very maternal, but around this one thing, I'm not like a person that gets really worried about health stuff and wanting. She always had something wrong, always complaining about some obscure thing that was wrong with her, and so I would do things like find some therapist or somebody she could go talk to her, tell her let's get your insurance in order so you can go see a doctor. That was the kind of advice that I would give her, and this really frustrated her, because what she wanted me to do was fuss over her, tend to her. That's what she wanted. She didn't want me telling her, let's get your insurance together so you can go see a doctor. That's not what she wanted me to do. And because, of course, getting her insurance together and things like that were more things that she had to be responsible for, taking care of getting done. And ultimately, these were the reasons that she finally, it was coming to a fruition where she was going to leave, was because we were really holding her feet to the fire, telling her she needed to start getting some things done. That was really what it was, more than anything else. More than anything it had to do with what was going on with my son or anything. It was that she needed to start coming through on some of the things that she was saying she wanted to do, and some of the things that we expected of her when she came. We were expecting her to follow through on that, and her time was running out, and she sensed that. She seemed to have phony emotions. She would yell "I love you" at the most strangest times to my son, and it was just very kind of awkward, and the way that she would have these overt expressions of affection seemed to be very much for show. The female narcissists are going to follow all the same red flags that the male narcissists do, but it's a little harder to see because it played up this victim role, and so the point I want to make here was that she really was a victim. So to be aware of that, because we all know, intellectually, we know that narcissists can be formed by being raised by narcissistic parents. We say that all the time. We say, the codependency and the narcissism both come from these abusive homes. Well, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to actually see it happening. So where someone's coming to your home, they act one way, and they're abused, you're not expecting that they're also secretly plotting against you, and so, because you're trying to reach out to them, and you're offering them this way out, you're offering them this answer, this solution that you yourself would have just been so grateful to have. That's where we ended up not seeing it. And so on top of that, the fact that my son had died, and we had a need for her too, and so we projected a lot, and it made us vulnerable as well. And so to those of you who were saying, don't forget there's female narcissists too, I certainly got a huge reminder of that is true. And also another thing, I'll carry this into another episode, but the concern that there is for when you see, I may have done the good thing about getting my sons to where they weren't narcissists, but lo and behold, they were repeating patterns that I had for choosing abusive partners. And I'm hoping that this is something that will stop here, and that there will be a lot of lessons learned in this first early on relationship, with the damage being relatively small, and that from here my son can go on and find compassionate, good people. But both of my son's first significant relationships have been with people that I would classify as sociopaths. So that's a little bit scary. And so how does that happen? That's an episode all in itself, which I'll get to down the road. So I'm going to talk some more about how the role that motherhood played in this, and motherhood played in both who this girl is and in who my son is. Let me know if you've had an experience something like this, if you've seen anything like this before. This is a shocker for me. But the selfie culture and the all that's all about. So, you get the idea. This video goes on and on and on. But yeah, there's plenty more of this where this just goes on. And she has other settings too. She has herself out in the snow when it snowed. She has herself in a, fancy coat. She has all kinds of different videos of herself doing this for hours. It's outrageous. It really, truly is outrageous.